everyone. Let's begin with some prayers, and then we'll do a little meditation on something from last week's class. While doing the prayers, try to feel you're in the presence of the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. You can imagine other refuge objects around him as well, and feel their wonderful qualities of universal love, compassion, wisdom, understanding the true nature of all things, and completely dedicated to helping every living being, ourselves and everyone else, to emerge from suffering and its causes and achieve happiness and its causes up to the highest happiness of enlightenment. So really feel that Buddha is someone you can rely on, and take refuge, not just for yourself, but for the sake of all other beings.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world's supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme science, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the 4 faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn, Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as of Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So just as we recited in the prayer, the last prayer, wanting to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, really make sure that is your motivation for participating in this class. But if you're not yet sure about that and have some concerns about the possibility of attaining enlightenment, try to at least have an altruistic attitude, wanting to benefit others as much as you can in your life, benefiting your family, friends, other people in the world itself. So try to have a genuine altruistic intention, motivation for being here. So for the meditation, we are now learning about the perfection of generosity, the first of the 6 perfections, main practices done by someone wanting to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. And sometimes it's difficult to be generous, mainly because of our tendency to have miserliness or stinginess. And so what the teachings advise is that to develop, to enhance, to increase our practice of giving, our generosity, it's good to think about the faults of miserliness. So a bodhisattva dedicates everything, their possessions, their wealth, even their body, their merit, their virtue, to others without attachment, and is willing to give all of these things for the purpose of attaining enlightenment. But we are usually attached to those things. For example, our body. It's hard to give our body or even part of our body to others because we're very attached to it. So we can contemplate the nature of the body, how our body is not something really wonderful and fantastic, but is made of all kinds of impure, unclean substances. So just think about some of those, like the things lying inside of our body we don't normally see, and ask yourself, is it really worth being attached to these things? Also, our body and our life are impermanent, changing every single moment, every day, every year. And as we get older, we experience more and more problems with our body, aging, sickness, and eventually we'll die. So considering that, does it make sense to have attachment to our body and our life as if we would like it to last forever and never change? The same is true with our possessions. They are impermanent, and we won't be able to hang on to them forever. Especially when we die, we have to leave everything behind. So wouldn't it make more sense to give at least some of our things away? And in that way practice generosity and create virtue using our possessions. And if we have some understanding of emptiness or selflessness, we can bring that in as well. Even though it seems like there's a real I, me, somewhere within our body-mind complex, that is an illusion. There is no such I. The only I that exists is what is merely designated in dependence on our body and mind. A merely labeled I, but not a real independent I that's the owner and the controller of the body and mind. So getting a sense of that can also help loosen our attachment. And then finally, we can contemplate that having attachment to our body and our possessions and so on, and not wanting to give them, is a cause of suffering. Attachment is one of the main factors that keeps us stuck in samsara, not even able to attain nirvana, liberation, much less full enlightenment, Buddhahood. And also if we act out of attachment, that we can sometimes do negative actions, non-virtuous actions, which are the cause of nothing but suffering, not happiness. So see if you can come to the conclusion that it's important to work on this. Remember again and again the faults of attachment and miserliness and stinginess, and do the best you can to overcome these attitudes, to reduce them and eventually be free of them altogether. Okay, so we're looking at the perfection of generosity, and generosity or giving is explained as the virtuous intention to give plus any actions that we do with our body and speech to actually give, motivated by that intention. So like giving food, giving money, giving clothes, giving dharma. So that's giving in general. And when giving is motivated by bodhicitta, mainly the uncontrived bodhicitta, the uncontrived wish to become a Buddha for the benefit of all beings, that's when it becomes the perfection of generosity. And then a bodhisattva's practice of generosity involves the willingness to give everything, as it says in the Guru Puja, which you recited last night. Inspire me to perfect far-reaching generosity through the instructions for enhancing the mind that gives without attachment, transforming my body, wealth, and 3 times collection of virtue into whatever each being desires. So there's the willingness, the readiness to give everything and not be attached to anything, even one's body. But of course, this is only something we can develop gradually. Difficult to do right away, but gradually we can develop that and get to that point. So the text says that to increase generosity, then there's a twofold approach. One is looking at the faults of miserliness, which we looked at last week, and we just did a meditation on that. So miserliness is one of the afflictions, a secondary affliction derived from attachment, and it's the opposite to generosity. Miserliness is, no, I don't want to give. I want to hang on to all these things for myself. So looking at the faults of miserliness, clinging to our body, our life, our things, and so on. If we can become more and more familiar with the faults of that attitude, then we'll want to work on overcoming that. And then the other approach to increase generosity is to look at the benefits of giving. So we look at the faults of miserliness, it's like the cons, and then the benefits of giving, the pros, and we compare those two, and that should lead us to want to work more on generosity. Okay, so where we left off was in the book on page 248, towards the bottom, starting with the paragraph saying, the benefits of giving are as taught in the Compendium of Trainings, Shantideva's text. In this way, my body and mind pass away in every instant. If I attain permanent, untainted enlightenment with this tainted, impermanent body, is it not obtained for free So regarding that last line, the way it's translated here, so the other text, the Lamrim Chenmo, the great treatise, has for that last line, "Will I not have attained what is priceless?" So I like that translation better. And also Geshe Zopa's translation is, "Why not trade it for something priceless?" Yeah, so yeah, those are alternate translations. So the point here is that even though we have this body that's impure, it's made of all these yucky things, and it's impermanent, subject to sickness, aging, and death, and causes us lots of problems in our lives. So there's really nothing there to be attached to. However, with this body, if we use it to practice the Dharma, especially the Mahayana path, then we can create the causes for enlightenment and obtain enlightenment. And some people with a lot of merit and strong imprints from past lives can even reach enlightenment in this lifetime, but that's very rare. So we can at least start to create the causes for enlightenment and go in that direction with this body. So that's the chief benefit, the number one benefit of the practice of generosity, because generosity is one of the practices that will enable us to create the cause for enlightenment. So that's the only benefit that's mentioned in this book. But there are other benefits, and so I took some from another book called Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism by Geshe Acharya Thupten Lodden, who lived in Australia many years. And so I put them in, I don't know if you can read this, it's maybe too small, but anyway, I'll go through them. And I put them in brackets just to show that that's from another source. And he brings in quotations from Chandrakirti's Entering in the Middle Way, chapter 1, where it's a lot about the perfection of generosity, and there's some really beautiful verses in that text. So, the next benefit here is that generosity brings wealth and resources in future lives, which are a source of happiness. So from Chandrakirti's text, there's the verse that says, "All living beings eagerly yearn for happiness, yet for humans there is no happiness without resources. Material resources, in turn, come about from generosity. Knowing this, the Buddha spoke on generosity first." So that's talking about a temporal benefit of generosity, that it's the cause for receiving or having stuff, right? And we need stuff. Even if we're a spiritual practitioner, trying to develop renunciation, work for enlightenment, we still need stuff. We have this body, so we need food and clothes and medicine and so on. So we need resources to continue our practice of Dharma, not just this life, but in many, many future lives up to enlightenment. So, so the way to ensure that we have those resources in our future lives is practicing generosity. And also happiness. Having resources brings happiness. Yeah, if you're impoverished, you're hungry, you're wearing rags, you're cold, it's difficult to be happy. And, even if you're trying to develop renunciation and practice Dharma, it's hard to have the energy to do that if you're so miserable. So, yeah, practicing generosity will bring resources in future lives and also happiness. So that's why the Buddha taught generosity first. And then the next benefit is that it leads to liberation from samsara. So that's a higher benefit, getting out of samsara altogether, which we all need to do. Stop taking rebirth in the prison of samsara and get ourselves out. And Shantideva also mentioned, Chandrakirti also talks about that in his text. He says, indeed, it is through the practice of generosity that he will swiftly at some point meet the Aryas. He will then cut clean the continuum of cyclic existence, and as a result, he will journey to the state of peace. So, through practicing generosity, one of the benefits is being able to meet Aryas, those who've attained the direct realization of emptiness, and they will help us, to realize that as well, gain the direct realization of emptiness, and in that way be able to eliminate the causes of suffering, get out of samsara, and attain nirvana. Then, another benefit is more to do with this present life. Giving to others makes them happy, and when seeing that, we also feel happy and will want to give even more. So Chandrakirti says, those who keep in mind their pledge to help sentient beings without much delay attain joy through their generosity. So people who have this sincere wish to benefit others will practice generosity, give to them, and in that way experience a lot of joy. It also makes others happy, but we ourselves will feel happy. And then another verse says, if simply hearing or thinking of the phrase, give me, brings such joy to the children of the conqueror, joy not experienced even by the arhats who enter into peace, what need is there to speak of the joy when giving everything away? So it's said that a bodhisattva feels incredible joy when someone just asks for something, like, please give me a cookie or something, whatever. And so just hearing those words brings incredible joy to their mind, and it's said that this joy is even greater than the bliss experienced by arhats in the state of nirvana. And so, and then if they actually do give, not just a cookie, but more and more and more things, everything away, then they will experience even more joy, greater joy. So these are like immediate benefits of generosity. Others, we bring happiness to others, also to oneself. And then other benefits we can experience here and now is less worry and fear about our possessions, because when you have a lot of stuff and you're attached to it, then there's naturally worry and fear. Will it be stolen? Will it be lost? Will it be damaged? So giving things away will reduce those experiences. And then other people and also animals will be attracted to us if we're a generous person, if we're kind and caring and generous. So that will attract others to us. And that's beneficial because then we can help them. We don't want them to be scared and run away when we come, because then we can't help them so much. And also greater well-being. Some years ago I came across a talk given by Richard Davidson, the neurologist, who's also a meditation practitioner. And he talked about 4 aspects of well-being that research has shown to be effective. So there's these 4 things that help us to have well-being. And he says these are based on neural circuits that show plasticity. And so if we exercise these circuits, they will strengthen and help us have greater well-being in our lives. So the 4 things are resilience, having a positive outlook, like being optimistic, attention, being able to stay focused, and generosity. So generosity is one of those 4 things that scientists have found to enhance well-being. So it's good for us to be generous and good for others. Any other benefits of generosity you can think of? Selden, microphone.
Might ease other suffering on some
Sure.
level.
Ease the suffering. Oh, of course. Yeah, if somebody's hungry, I give them food. That's definitely going to ease their suffering and make them happy. Wholesome.
When you give something to someone, you also give them an example of generosity. So it can be contagious.
Contagious. And that's good for them too, because people who are impoverished and lacking things, it's probably because they didn't practice generosity in the past. And so if we can be an example of generosity, that will inspire them to practice that, and that will benefit them. Because just giving someone a plate of food is great, it relieves their suffering right now. But if they don't practice generosity, if they don't create virtue, then they're just going to keep having the same problem again and again in the future. So yeah, teaching others to be that way. So anyway, the point here is that if we contemplate the problem as the negative results of miserliness and then the beneficial results of giving, then our mind will gradually change and will want to have more generosity and practice that more and be less miserly. So yeah, gradually our mind will become more and more generous. Yeah, I also find it helpful to be around generous people, because I remember in the past, most of my life, I was really miserly, and I blame it on my ancestry. That's just, I don't know if that's true or not, but they say Scots are thrifty, and so but that really changed when I went to Singapore. And I was just on the receiving end of amazing generosity, and it was like, wow. And it really inspired me, just observing, just being with people who were incredibly generous and joyful about it, really happy to give. And I started doing it more myself. So that really helped me to be more generous. Okay, so now we'll continue with the book, bottom of page 248. So, Entering the Bodhisattva Way, Shantideva's book, describes how generosity should actually be generated. This is in chapter 3 of that book. I give away with no sense of loss my body, as well as my possessions, and all my virtues of the 3 times, to accomplish the welfare of all sentient beings. So there's 3 things we need to be generous with: our body, physical body, and our possessions, everything we have, and then our virtues, the merits, the virtue we create in the past, the present, and the future. So these are the things we need to give away to others for their benefit and for the attainment of enlightenment, so that we can benefit them as much as possible. So he says, like that, taking body, wealth, and roots of virtue as your object, familiarize yourself again and again with the thought of giving them away to all sentient beings. So in Geshe Zopa's commentary, he says, in the beginning, we practice giving on the mental level with our thought, with our attitude. We imagine I'm giving these to others. They don't belong to me anymore. They belong to others. So we train ourselves in that state of mind. And then later, gradually, of course, we can practice a certain amount of giving now, but it's said not to give your body away until you're at a high level. That's not a good idea. So later, as we develop more and more on the path, then we can give more in real time, in reality. And he says that next. He says, since your current determination is immature and of little strength, you should not actually give away your flesh and so forth, even though you have already mentally given away your body to sentient beings. Nonetheless, the Compendium of Training says that if we do not train in the thought of giving away our body and life now, we will also not be able to do so in the future, owing to a lack of familiarity with it. Therefore, it is necessary to train in that thought from now on. So even though, in the beginning, we don't actually have to give our body and everything, but we need to train in that state of mind. Otherwise, we will never get to the point in the future where we can actually do those practices. So the practice of Tonglen is a really helpful way of doing that. Taking and giving, taking on the suffering of others and then giving our body, our possessions, our virtues to others, imagining them transforming into beautiful things, pleasant things, enjoyable things, giving those to others to make them happy. Then he says, thus it is an afflicted infraction. Infraction is also translated as downfall. When out of craving you use food, clothing, and so forth that you have sincerely given away to sentient beings, having forgotten the thought, I will use these for the welfare of others, and instead using them for your own welfare. So I was surprised by this. I don't remember hearing this before, and I wondered, has Venerable Chudren ever talked about it? When talking about the Bodhisattva downfalls, Bodhisattva vows, has she ever mentioned this? That if you use your things for yourself, then that's a downfall, Bodhisattva downfall.
I recently came across a section in some teachings where she was talking about this, but she didn't actually use the word downfall. So she said it's negative. She didn't tie it with a transgression.
Yeah, because I was looking at the root Bodhisattva vows, and there isn't a vow that says this. I mean, the only one that's close to it is the second vow, where, if you don't give resources or you don't give the Dharma, yeah. But the way that's explained, the way I've always understood it, is that it's specific circumstances. Like if there's somebody who's really in need, and they come to you and ask for something, material things or Dharma, and they have nobody else to give to them, they're solely relying on you to give them what they need, and you say no, that's when you break that downfall, which is a great relief, because otherwise when you're in India and you've got hundreds literally of beggars coming to you and wanting something, and it's really difficult to give to all of them. So they say, yeah, you don't have to give to every single one, every being that comes and asks for something, but it's that kind of specific situation. So, this seems to be talking about something else. And I was trying to find more information about it. I looked in different commentaries and didn't really find much. Geshe Zopa's commentary, I'll just read what he says. He says, beginner bodhisattvas practice thinking, whatever I have, my wealth, my body, my life, actually belongs to others. even though they make this dedication with complete sincerity, they do not give these things in actuality. This is beginners. We continue to use our body and property, but we think, I am eating this food for the benefit of others, or for the benefit of others, I will wear this coat. Okay, so we're supposed to have that thought when we wear our clothes, when we eat food, when we use our computer or whatever, but read our books. We're supposed to be thinking, I'm doing this for others. It really belongs to others, but I'm using it for their benefit. He says, giving one's life to others means that from now on, one is in their service. We are working to accomplish their goals, freeing them from misery and having them attain the highest achievements. One's life is an extremely important tool for completing this task. We therefore nourish and take care of the body so that we can get our work done, work for others. With this attitude, there's no problem with using the things that we have mentally given to others. So as long as we have that attitude, then it's fine. When we use our body and our clothes and food and so on for the benefit of others. And he says, a bodhisattva's attitude is, even though this body and these material goods are not mine, I will use them for the purpose of attaining enlightenment in order to save others. If bodhisattvas forget this, they incur a downfall and break the bodhisattva vow. So maybe that's the thing. This is a bodhisattva, right? Talking about someone who has uncontrived bodhicitta, and that may not apply to any of us. So, but we need to at least think in that way, train our mind in that way, work on overcoming our attachment, and not use our things in a selfish way with attachment. Otherwise, we break the bodhisattva vow. And then he goes on to say there are various types of downfalls, heavy, intermediate, and light, with many subdivisions. In this case, the serious downfall is to fail to remember others and use things for one's own pleasure, stimulated by the poisons of desire, hatred, or ignorance. We create this downfall even if our attachment is directed toward a person other than oneself. For example, we do something for a beloved relative while neglecting all others. Okay, so if we use some of our things just for one person, even our mother, and don't have an attitude of equanimity towards all living beings, but there's attachment to that one person, there's still a downfall. An intermediate downfall is less serious if it is breaking the rules without attachment. Okay, so if we do this without attachment, using our stuff for our own sake, but not with attachment, then it's still a downfall, but an intermediate one. So I think that's what Lama Tsongkhapa mentions next. He says, it is a non-afflicted infraction if, without this craving, you forget the perception that includes all sentient beings, or if you are attached to those things for the sake of another sentient being. So if there's a loved one, a family member, and you're using things just for their benefit, but not for all beings. So, yeah, this is something we need to be careful of. Next is even also worrying. He says, it is stealing if you use for your own sake those things dedicated to others, knowing they are someone else's property. If those things are valuable, it becomes a defeat of the pratimoksha vow. So, right, those of us who have, the bhikshu and bhikshuni vows, one of the defeats is stealing. So he's saying if we use things that we have dedicated to others, we've dedicated these things for others, and then we use them for our own sake, he's saying that's stealing, that's a defeat. but there's a little bit more about that coming. So otherwise, I don't know if any of us would still be ordained. And then he says, on the other hand, there's no fault if you use them thinking, I will use this sentient being's wealth for his own welfare. This is mentioned in the compendium of trainings. So here he kind of explains it more carefully. He says, it becomes a defeat when you have dedicated something with a sincere thought to a sentient being who is a human, and he is aware of it and also holds it to be his. So this is a more kind of detailed explanation. Let's say somebody gives me a new computer, a brand new computer, and I don't need it. I already have a computer, so I want to give it to somebody else. So I ask somebody, would you like a computer? And they say, yeah, sure. And so I say, okay, it's yours. But it's still with me. They haven't yet come to pick it up. But I have mentally given that to the other person, and they have mentally received it. So they think, oh, I have that computer. And then it sounds like, yeah, even if I just use it, you know, if I use it for myself, I use that computer to, I don't know, do something selfish, look at a movie or something, then he's saying, he seems to be saying that's when it becomes a defeat. Yeah. So, yeah, I have to be very careful. And then he says the factors for it to become a defeat are present if you take it for your own welfare, aware that it belongs to someone else, and if it is of some value. So I guess if it's something that doesn't have much value, like maybe a roll of toilet paper, something that's, you know, to be a defeat, it has to have a certain, what's the value? Is it like, you could be taken to court. That's one explanation I've heard. You could actually be taken to court for stealing that. So it kind of depends on each country. So it has to be something valuable. But a computer would be valuable. So, yeah, so this is something to be careful of. So, yeah, I guess the safe thing would be if you're in that situation, you've dedicated this extra computer to somebody else and they haven't yet come to pick it up and maybe you need to use it, you could ask them, is it okay if I use your computer to do something rather than just going ahead and using it? It's kind of strange. I mean, we don't normally do that, right? Using a, yeah. And also, remember there was a discussion once with a Lama who was giving teachings on our precepts, and you know, it's like if you're quite sure that if you like somebody, you're staying at somebody's house, for example, you know, and they're not away, and you want to, you know, have a cup of tea, and if you can't ask them, is it okay to have a cup of tea? They're away somewhere. But if you know, you're really sure that helping yourself to their tea would be completely fine. If they were there and you asked them, they would say, yes, of course, take my tea. So if you have that understanding, you have that kind of relationship with a person and that kind of understanding, then it's not stealing to just help yourself. Yeah? That's how it's normally understood. So it seems like this would also be the same situation, you know? You've given that computer to someone, they haven't picked it up. You're pretty sure that they would say, oh, go ahead and use it, no problem, you know, I'll get it tomorrow. So I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here, but a little hard. Maybe we can ask Geshe Samdo about this. It's a little startling, this section here.
This thing, like the value that it would be taken to go to court. So in terms of like what happens here where people wear other people's shoes, that's not part of, it wouldn't be considered because nobody would take you to court if you wear somebody else's shoes or use their things without asking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a community, and if there is that kind of understanding, there's that kind of relationship, among people, that, yeah, it's fine to use each other's shoes just temporarily. You're not actually stealing it, you're just borrowing it because you have to run outside and put the preta offering out, something like that. I don't know. So if there's that kind of understanding, it seems like, yeah, it's not actually stealing. Or in a family also, yeah, family.
As I recall, Venerable's guideline was don't take the shoes unless it's someone that you know really would be okay with it. Because not everybody in the community would, right? Yeah, that was my
But it's
memory.
also not such a good idea health-wise. People can have foot diseases, fungus, and so on. Yes. Lise. You have to press the button.
Yes, no. I asked myself, is it really stealing if you take something from somebody else for a short period of time? Or is it more like rude or like mean or something?
Like what?
Like rude.
Rude?
Rude, yeah.
Rude. Oh.
It's not about taking something away, it's just being not nice to that person.
Well, usually the criteria for stealing, like just in the 5 precepts, is taking something and then thinking it's mine, right? So if you actually take ownership, mental ownership of that thing, and you have no intention of giving it back, that's when it really becomes stealing. So to just borrow somebody's bicycle, for example, to run to the store, you're going to bring it back and give it back. You're not really taking ownership of it. It's not, strictly speaking, that isn't stealing, but yeah, it could be upsetting to the person unless you just have that kind of relationship with the person. They've already said, oh yeah, use my bike whenever you want. So then it isn't stealing. But it's usually good to check with people. I mean, just think about how we would feel. You walk outside, you want to use your bike and it's not there because your friend has taken it, and you need to go to work. So it's like, inconvenience. So it is best to check with people before doing something like that. Selden.
I wonder if there's a distinction in that, say I give you a computer, and like your example, and then then I shouldn't think that I can use it anytime because it was mine at one point. I haven't totally given it away. It's like, what's my intention? Or in the first place. And to not still have attachment, thinking I can use it because I gave it like that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a correct attitude to have. If you give something, you give it. You're not still hanging on to it and thinking you can use it anytime. So again, it's best to talk to the person and ask their permission if it's okay to use it. Yeah. Another thing that happens sometimes, this happens with lamas. You give a gift to a lama or a teacher, and you might have certain expectations about what they're going to do with it. They're going to use it for themselves or whatever, and then they give it away, and you can get really upset about that. Which means you haven't completely given it. You're still kind of clinging to it. Yeah. Lots of little details about giving. So there's this verse that's recited by Tibetan monastics in the morning, and I got this many years ago. I think I shared it with some of you, maybe not everybody, but it's something you recite every morning. You say, "O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas residing in the 10 directions, please pay attention to me. I, the Bodhisattva, Bhikshuni so-and-so, or Bhikshu so-and-so, having given away my body, my articles of livelihood, together with all my roots of virtue, to all sentient beings. Today, on this occasion, for the welfare of living beings, I shall use food, clothes, dwelling place, bed, and so forth, only for the purpose of attaining the welfare of all living beings. So that's a helpful reminder of this, yeah, if we can keep it in mind. So when we're using our clothes, our shoes, our other things, our bed, our food, and so on, to remember we're doing this for the purpose of all beings. So in that way we can avoid this downfall.
Well, I'm curious on your take on organ donation. Like at the point of time, what if you still cling on to it, then how?
You mean at the time of death? If you've signed up to be an organ donor, and then at the time of death you're clinging to your liver, your kidney. Why would you want to do that? What do you need a liver for? I mean, if
Painful.
you know you're dying. Well, painful. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussion. This is a huge issue. There's a lot of discussion and opinions about whether or not to be an organ donor. And there are some who say it better not to sign up for that, because they have to take the organs before you stop breathing. So the consciousness might still be in the body, and it could freak out. Although I would think at that point in time, going like the 8 stages of death, at that point in time, I'm not sure if you would still be experiencing any physical sensations. You may be beyond that point. Anyway, so they say it could mess up the process of, passing away peacefully and then ensuring a good rebirth in the next life. So some say don't do it. But I heard one, I don't know who it was that said this, I think one Lama, who said that if you sincerely want to give your organs to somebody else to save their life, I mean, it's incredible, if someone else can get a kidney and that will save their life, or at least enable them to live longer. And if you do that with sincerity, a generous mind, then you create so much virtue. That is such a virtuous state of mind that there's no need to worry about that getting messed up. You kind of guaranteed yourself a fortunate rebirth in your next life. So that's another opinion. I guess it depends on how sincere you are and how attached you are, So yeah, working on these points of overcoming attachment to our body. And we're dying, we're on our way out. So why should we be attached to our kidneys and our liver and our eyes? And, we don't need them anymore where we're going. So it's good to contemplate that and really try to, I mean, it's each person's decision. Nobody says you have to sign up for that. But I guess in Singapore, if you don't say no, then it's automatic. Yeah? You have to opt out. That's my understanding. You have to opt out, otherwise they will just automatically take. Yeah, so it's the opposite to other countries. So you do have to think carefully about what you want to do. So let's see, where are we? Okay, so this is, so talking about infractions or downfalls, bodhisattva downfalls, and also defeat. There's the danger of those happening if we're not careful. And then the positive side, he says, apart from that, bodhisattva levels by a Sangha teaches that merit increases immeasurably and with little effort through training in the determination to emanate immeasurable varieties of offerings and to give them with clarity to sentient beings from the depths of one's heart. That is the generosity of the wise bodhisattva. Yeah, so, even just on the mental level, we visualize lots and lots of wonderful offerings, and we give those to sentient beings. Or, like yesterday, Venerable Children talked about when we're having our meals and imagining, others who are hungry around us and also getting a meal and enjoying it, but also offering it so that they can create virtue. So just on the mental level, we can create a huge amount of merit and virtue with this practice of giving. Then it goes on to say, training in the perfection of generosity will be very powerful if, at the time it occurs, it is endowed with the 6 perfections. Specifically, the 6 are made complete if there is, at that time, the ethics that restrain the mental attention of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. So he's talking here about, the ideal way to practice generosity for Bodhisattva is to simultaneously, or at the same time, practice the other 5 perfections. So ethics, the second one, is restraining the mental attention of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. So that means they are those who have who are very serious about their ethical conduct, very, very careful to avoid creating any non-virtue, breaking any precepts, and so on. So trying to have that same kind of attitude ourselves and try to be like them, very, very careful about our ethical conduct when we're practicing giving. So example, don't be like Robin Hood, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. That's not appropriate. And then second, for patience, the determination and patience derived from aspiring to the qualities of omniscience. That means wanting to be like Buddha, wanting to have the same kind of patience that the Buddha has, and patience when abused by others. Because it can sometimes happen that when giving, instead of getting thanks, you get abuse. You get people complaining that you didn't give them enough, and they want more, and then you can get angry. So we don't want that. We gotta remain patient no matter what kind of response we get from the recipients. And then joyous effort. The joyous effort that generates the aspiration for increasing that more and more. So not feeling satisfied with our practice of giving, but wanting to do it again and again and more joyfully. The meditative stabilization that is a single-pointed mind, not mixed with a hinayana, and that dedicates that virtue to complete enlightenment. So what that means is being able to remain single-pointedly on what we're doing and not having the attitude or the motivation of wanting liberation for oneself alone, but dedicating our energy or merit to Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. So staying focused on that. And the wisdom that understands the object given, the act of giving, and the recipient to be like illusions. So being able to keep in mind the emptiness of inherent existence or independent existence of the different aspects of the act of giving. I mean, there's actually 4 things. They usually say the 3 spheres, but in the case of giving, there's actually 4 things. There's the giver, yourself, then the act of giving, the object given, whatever is being given, and then the recipient. But you can choose any of those 3. And they're all 4 of them are empty of inherent existence. And an easy way to understand that is to just think about how they are interdependent. There wouldn't be a giver if there wasn't an act of giving. So doing an act of giving makes you a giver, and there also needs to be a recipient. Otherwise, you can't give to empty space. And there needs to be a gift. Just giving emptiness isn't, empty hand isn't really giving. So all of those different factors depend on each other. For an act of giving to happen, there has to be all of those factors. So they're interdependent and therefore not, not inherently or independently existing. So that's it for this book. So it's quite a short section on giving, generosity in here. And then I thought to bring in some information from the Lamrim Chenmo, the great treatise. There's a lot more there, but I won't go through every single point. I had some notes from Dalai Lama's teachings on that text. So this is kind of a summary of some of the main points about giving. And there's sort of practical things like do's and don'ts when practicing giving. So yeah, feel free to read that on your own. Also Geshe Zopa's commentary, which elaborates even more. But just in a brief way, here are some do's and don'ts. So some attitudes to have while practicing giving is to think, I'm giving in order to attain enlightenment for all sentient beings. That's my goal. So even giving some breadcrumbs to a bird, it's good to think, why am I doing this? It's not just to benefit this little bird in front of me, but I want to help all sentient beings, and I want to help them in the best way by becoming a Buddha and then leading them all to Buddhahood. So try to remember that motivation. Another attitude is, all my possessions belong to sentient beings. That's like what we looked at earlier. Another attitude is, the recipients are my spiritual teachers, enabling me to attain Buddhahood. So that's helpful to avoid a sense of pride and arrogance. I am this great benefactor. Look at me, I'm so generous. So to actually think that the beings that we are giving to are like my teachers. They're teaching me how to be more generous, giving me the opportunity to increase my generosity. So they're helping me to reach enlightenment. And then when giving to someone who's harmed you, give with loving kindness. So in addition to having a generous attitude, also have loving kindness, wishing them to be happy, which is challenging. A person has made me suffer, but in return, I want them to be happy. And then when giving to someone who is suffering, have compassion, understanding their suffering and really genuinely wanting to relieve their suffering. And when giving to someone with high qualities, like our spiritual teachers, give with appreciation of those. So think about the good qualities of that person, have respect for them, appreciation of them. And then when giving to someone who has helped us, oneself, give with equanimity. I think that means try not to have attachment, yeah? Which can easily arise, oh, that person has been really kind, really generous to me. So there's some attachment there, and that may even be influencing our generosity. I want to make sure that that person will continue to help me and give me things. So try not to have those attitudes, but have equanimity, like for all living beings, even-mindedness for all living beings, and not special attachment to that kind of person. So those are attitudes we should try to have while we give, and then there's some attitudes we should try to avoid, abandon. One is holding wrong views as supreme. For example, thinking there's no result of giving, that, this is not something useful, there won't be any good results. So try not to have that thought. Another one is wishing to harm any sentient being, so give up any thought, attitude of harmfulness towards anybody. And then having pride, competitiveness, wanting recognition or fame, bullying. So those are other attitudes to avoid. Yeah, don't be competing with others. Somebody just made a very generous donation and you're kind of jealous, and so you want to do better than them, and so you give $1 more than they did, or something like that. And wanting to be recognized and respected and well known as a generous person, so try to give up that kind of attitude. Bullying, I don't know where that would come in. Maybe when giving, then doing it with a sort of bullying attitude. That can happen in India. The beggars, like in Bodhgaya, they're fighting with each other to get gifts. And they do really naughty things, it's like there'll be a long line of them, and you're going down the line giving one dice. And then one, after getting, the little kids do this, yeah. They run around to the end of the line. Okay, so even if that happens, don't get into a bullying mode, beat them up and yell at them and so on. And then another one to avoid is mental discouragement. Maybe we could get discouraged if we give, but it doesn't seem to be helpful, or maybe they don't show appreciation. So even if those kind of things happen, we don't get the desired outcome. We shouldn't get discouraged, but have joy about giving and not regret. Yeah, don't have regret. That's really important, because regret, you give something and then later you regret it. That's actually negative. That's a negative state of mind. It's good to be really sure that won't happen before you give wholeheartedly. And then partiality, avoid partiality. Try not to have, I want to give to these people, but not to them. I don't like them. We try to see all beings as equally deserving of our gifts. Another one is with expectations. So that's hard to do, but at least try to be aware and try to avoid having specific expectations of getting something in return for our acts of giving, even future results. So a bodhisattva doesn't even think about the good results they're going to get in the future as a result of giving. You're not supposed to be attached to those. You're supposed to give away even your virtue, your merit, to others. Make other sentient beings have this merit, not be... you will get good results. Yeah, there's definitely good results that will come, but you shouldn't be thinking about those and grasping at those. And continue having the thought, whatever good results come, like in the future, if I receive wealth, if I'm in a good situation, I want to use that to benefit others, not just to enjoy myself. Then another list here is what kind of actions we should use when we practice giving. So one is don't postpone, but give immediately. So if we have the intention to give something, it's good to do it immediately and not just to put it aside and wait for days or months or years. As soon as we can, give that object. Another one, don't make beggars do anything contrary to Dharma. I don't know what that one might be, but yeah, if you give to a beggar and then you say, oh, now do something, do this for me, and if it's something contrary to the Dharma, that would be incorrect. And then don't say, I gave you a lot yesterday, so today I'm giving you just a little. that could easily happen. I've had that thought in my mind. Yeah, you see the same beggar every day and you think, oh, I gave you something yesterday, so you shouldn't expect something today. Another one is they say, give with your own hands rather than asking someone else to do it for you. I mean, there may be circumstances where you can't give with your own hands. You're too busy, you ask someone else to do it for you. But they say it is best to do it yourself, you yourself physically giving that gift. I guess another reason for asking someone else to do it is if that person is very miserly and you want them to get into the habit of giving, then you ask them, please give this. Yeah, so that can help them to become more generous. And then another one is give with a radiant, smiling expression. Yeah, so don't have a nice expression on your face, and with a straightforward mind, not a, I don't know, crooked mind, crafty mind, wanting to manipulate the situation. Give at an appropriate time. Yeah, so not like 2 o'clock in the morning when the person's in bed asleep, you knock on their door and say, hey, I want to give you something. So that wouldn't be kind. And also without harming. Don't do anything harmful when giving. And then help others to practice giving. So one way to do that is if you yourself are wealthy, or at least you have enough things, then you can share some of your things with another person who doesn't have much and is miserly, and then, you know, encourage them to give, to get them into the habit of giving. And then some other points. If your compassion isn't so strong, what they actually say is if you don't have great compassion, don't give your body. So that's sort of the point at which you can give your body when you have great compassion. And great compassion is when you have compassion for all sentient beings without exception, and you feel responsible. You take on the responsibility to free all of them from all their suffering. You feel, I am going to ensure that they all become free of their suffering. So that's one criterion. I think some say uncontrived bodhicitta. That's the point at which you can give your body.
I thought it was more around the path of seeing.
There was something earlier. I'll look that up and I'll check on that. Yeah, at what point you can give your body. I think there are probably different opinions about this. Path of seeing sounds reasonable when you've got the direct realization of emptiness, but that some may say earlier. And then don't give your body for a minor purpose. I don't know what a minor purpose would be, but yeah, no good reason. And don't give if someone is trying to test you. I don't know what that might be. Just trying to see how generous you are. They're not really in need, right? Maybe it's a person who isn't really in need. They're just kind of testing to see how generous you are. So they ask for something. But I don't know how you would be sure of that. And then don't give things that can cause harm, like weapons or traps for animals, poisons, things that could be used to create suffering. Also, don't give improper things. For example, giving a bottle of whiskey to an ordained person, or giving meat to vegetarians, Now, those are improper things. Another example is giving Buddhist scriptures to those who are incapable of understanding them, like giving a sutra to a 5-year-old child who can't read it and understand it, or who have commercial purposes, so maybe their intention is to sell that scripture and make money, make a profit, so that wouldn't be appropriate to give. Or if they want to criticize, like if somebody wants to learn the Buddhist scriptures so that they can criticize Buddhism. But again, it may be hard to know if that's really their intention or not. And anyway, nowadays, anybody can go online or bookstores and get scriptures, so they can get them themselves. And then another thing, don't give an object that you can use to benefit many sentient beings. So an example is paper. If you're planning to use that paper to compose a text that will benefit many, many, many sentient beings, somebody asks you for that paper, you don't have to give it, but you can give money instead. Here's some money, go and buy your own paper. And then in cases where you're not able to give, like because of miserliness, don't use harsh words, don't yell at the person, make them feel bad, but use kind, skillful words. There's even in the text kind of, an example of things you could say. You could say, I'm a beginner in the Mahayana, and I am still influenced by an ungenerous attitude and grasping at myself, so please forgive me. So at least you're being honest and polite, and hopefully the other person will feel better. And then it says, if 2 people, one rich and one poor, ask you to give, if you can, give to both of them. Don't think, I'm not going to give to the rich person because they don't need it. They do need, because if they may be stingy and miserly and lacking in generosity. So it's still good to give to them. But if you can't give to both, if you don't have enough for both of them, then give to the poor one. And then for us, we're not supposed to give our 3 robes. That's in the Vinaya itself. It's actually a transgression. So our choga, our namjar, and our shamdap, we shouldn't give unless we have extra sets. So if we have extra robes, we can give those, but we shouldn't give our main set of 3 robes. Then it also says, if you're overcome by stinginess when you're asked to give something, you should think about how you will have to separate from it at the time of death. And giving it now, you'll be able to create a lot of virtue, and that will help you lessen your attachment. So at the time of death, you'll have less attachment, no regrets, and more joy. So think about the benefits of giving and the faults of attachment and miserliness, and then try to give. So I don't know if we have time. Maybe we can leave this for next week. Are there any questions so far? Or comments or stories?
I did think of another advantage of giving after we got past that, but when giving to something like monastery, your resources can go so much further in sharing the Dharma with many, many other people. So you can really expand tremendously the effect depending on the object of the gift. It's way a benefit a lot. monastery, but going to Doctors Without Borders or aid agencies that, you know, my $10 gift's not going to do much, but adding that with many others can have a very
Yeah.
powerful effect.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful thought. Yeah, I only have $1 to give, but if I give it to an organization that's receiving donations from all over the world and doing wonderful things with those donations, then my gift, you know, my $1, you know, gets added to that pool, and it does benefit so many people. So, you know, we shouldn't think, oh, I only have $1. It's not going to do much good to anybody. You can't even buy a cup of coffee with $1. But when that $1 is added to all that other money that people are giving, then it can benefit so many people. So that's an encouragement. And similar, like when there's teachings in India, they have this practice of people can make donations, and then that money is used to offer tea and bread to the whole crowd. So again, you just give $1 or 1 rupee even, and that goes into this big pool that gets given to so many people. And you get the merit of that, yeah? So you gain tremendous merit, even with just 1 rupee. So yeah, it's very inspiring to think about that. And then giving to a monastery, then you're not just filling the stomachs of those monastics, but then that's giving them energy so that they can study and practice and teach and benefit others. And so again, it becomes very, very beneficial, widespread benefit. Oh, Venerable Jigme.
I was thinking about the one about not giving your body when, unless you're, you know, at a high level. But there are many people in the world who, what comes to mind is a mother whose child is in danger, and they put themselves in danger and save the child. You know, that kind of thing happens a lot. So that would be really pure generosity, I would think.
Yeah, I think this is just talking about us who are following the Bodhisattva path. And, you know, there is this talk about giving your body and all these stories like the Buddha in his past lives giving the body. So it's natural to wonder, well, am I supposed to do that now at my level? Yeah, I used to worry about that. I'm not ready to feed tigers with my body. You know, you can wait till you're at the high level, at least bodhisattvahood. But yeah, also rescue workers, yeah. They also, like all those firemen in 9/11, I don't know how many of them lost their lives, but yeah, that's an ongoing thing. People who work to save the lives of others and often lose their own lives in the process. Amazing, really incredible.
When we give blood, it's a form of giving the part of the body, and it's also, we can think of it that way so that we're practicing that with our mind. And also when the mosquitoes bite, I mean, I don't want to stand out in the yard and let 1,000,000 mosquitoes bite me. I'll leave that for Rinpoche. But, well, I had one on me and I went trying to blow it away, but she was already, you know, not gonna, so I just walked up the hill with her on my arm the whole time and did mantra for her and just made it a conscious, I said, yeah, you can freely take this.
Yeah, after hearing about Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he was once in Bodhgaya, and there's a lot of mosquitoes there. So his attendant walked in the room and saw that he had rolled up the mosquito net around his bed and took off his shirt. He was just sitting there feeding the mosquito. So after hearing that, it took me a while, but, you know, I started like one at a time. You know, I don't mind. Not a whole swarm, but one mosquito at a time. I can give my blood, just a few drops of blood. You know, it doesn't hurt me and benefits. Well, that's questionable, because if it's used for their reproductive cycle, that means it's going to create more mosquitoes. Is that true? Is that what the blood, they use the blood for their, you were doing? That's what I heard. Yeah, they need it to reproduce and produce more mosquitoes. Oh well, anyway. But if it stays in my room and dies there, then that's not going to happen. So
Out of these school shootings where not even adults, even kids will shield other kids.
well, what?
School shootings where even kids will shield other
Shield.
kids.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
wow. Amazing.
pretty amazing for a young kid.
Yeah. Strong imprints from past lives. So that shows, if we cultivate these kind of thoughts and wishes, aspirations, then we're planting those seeds in our mind, and in the future we might do something like that ourselves. Thinking of others before ourselves. Okay, that's a good point to end on. So let's rejoice in what we've been doing this last hour and a half, and feel confident we have definitely created a lot of merit just listening and generating positive thoughts about these teachings, and then dedicate the merit to all living beings.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the Venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forever.